Hello and welcome to Virtual Concert Hall's live music channel. My name is Chris Au and I have with me the co-founder of Virtual Concert Halls, Dr. Anna Ouspenskaya.
Chris, thank you, and thank you everyone for tuning in today. I'm really looking forward to this program.
Yeah, we're really happy to be your host for today's show. This is part 2 of the documentary of Beethoven's Symphony No. 8, written and narrated by Lawrence Rapchak, created by New Media Productions Worldwide and Virtual Concert Halls, and produced by the Architects of Music.
And this incredible collaboration has been made possible because it's our all shared passion to be connecting musicians and audiences in real-time music performances and programs from around the globe.
Beethoven now begins the central development section with that octave figure, played by the violas, and then he takes the first measure of the main theme, or X, along with that big C major passage that just ended the exposition. And he simply alternates these elements through a succession of broad harmonic blocks. But that octave figure persists as the surrounding harmonies slowly change. And soon the entire orchestra has been taken over by the formerly whimsical This is classic symphonic development, as was pioneered by Haydn and Beethoven. The robust dance character of the opening is now transformed, engulfed in orchestral tempest in D minor. The theme is in the bass, with torrents of violin arpeggios and misplaced accents from the entire orchestra on the second beat of the measure. And Beethoven is using the first two measures of the main theme. Then he compresses it further, as he so often does, to just the first bar, our X motive, now in contrary motion. And the music moves through D minor, through G minor, through C minor. Let me know when he gets to F minor. And he does the same key as the Pastoral Symphony's great storm scene, and Beethoven now recalls that tempest. And the dramatic turbulence of this music is increased by the misalignment of the main motive, X, in the low strings, with accents on the first beat, like so, which is natural, followed by the first violins with accents on the second beat, 1, 2, and together they produce this effect. And and the entire wind, brass, and timpani section hammering away at the second beat of each measure. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The X motive is now compressed over a diminished seventh chord. And those crazy octaves now return in the low strings. And it's the low strings, the cello and bass, that take over the main theme now as the music soars into its grand recapitulation. And you heard Beethoven adds a new figure here to assist in the sweep, the forward motion of the music. So now, the second part of the main theme, which originally was this, is now embellished with that new flowing figure, which adds to the dynamic thrust of this passage. And as usual with sonata form, we encounter all the themes and events in the same order as we heard them in the exposition, but now they're in the tonic key of F major. And the recap will end with the, by now very familiar, octave figure. And just as they did going into the development section, the octaves now carry us into the coda, a solo bassoon, and that isolated F, the tonic note, now magically becomes the third of the key of D flat major, and a solo clarinet sings a lovely lyrical version of the main theme. And remember the 5 ascending notes from the main theme. This, 1, 2, 3. Well, true to form, Beethoven now isolates this figure, and it becomes a little 4-part round in the strings. And so this coda is almost like a new development section, with plenty of misterioso as the ascending figure leads us through D flat major, B flat 7, E flat minor, C7, a big diminished chord on B, a big crescendo back to F major, with a final statement of the main theme, now with a few diminished chords added for a little extra drama, leading to a grand fermata, a long held note on a C 7th chord. The same device that we've seen Beethoven use so often in his finales. Here now is the 4-part round in the strings on that ascending, and we'll go all the way to the big fermata. And as always, something new and fascinating follows this fermata. In this case, it's a rare, gentle, and lyrical passage right in the middle of this high-powered coda, so its effect is all that more remarkable. So Beethoven takes our X motive and he repeats it, linking it together into a lovely stream of melody. There's X. And again. And again. And the beauty of this this passage largely due to the use of the subdominant chord, which repeats and builds to a blazing diminished chord, resolving into F major and a series of triumphant horn fifths based on the X motive. So let's back up to that lovely lyrical passage after the Grande Fermata and listen as this lovely, lovely lyrical passage gains momentum into this thrilling climax. Not surprisingly, the power and brilliance of Beethoven's final measures are entirely based on simple dominant and tonic chords, an emphatic, dramatic, decisive, definitive ending. But wait, is there an echo in here? And, in closing, a delicate F major triad from the winds, and the main theme in the strings, which just disappears from sight.
Wow.
The ending surprises the heck out of me every time.
Yeah, because it definitely should have ended 16 measures ago, perhaps, but it didn't. This echo. That's brilliant.
Yeah, there's so much imagination going into this. It's almost like Beethoven is teasing himself and everyone around. What else can happen there?
Yeah, because he's really returned to his sort of roots in the symphonic form, and even with nature, you get reminiscence of Symphony No. 6. You know, you get this sort of idea that there is nature. And I was thinking a lot about how this is quite different, especially with the scenery and the wonderful editing that our producers did, that this is more natural and more to do with nature than some of the other symphonies where we explore the galaxy and the stars and how it's all transcendent. This is like kind of back to Beethoven's sort of natural roots in a way.
Yep, and the prevailing rhythm of the Landler, Lawrence is not talking a lot about it, but this is a 3-4 time signature throughout with a really heavy accents happening on the second beat, and that's signature for the German Landler. It's a big, rusty, rough, bearded brother of a waltz.
Yeah.
Which represents the village culture, the beer, the sausage kind of culture.
Yeah, and I mean, I've played some of the Schubert's Landlers as well, and it's this sort of idea. It's music for the people, and maybe there's this sort of wonderful return to music that is for the people. I mean, I even it's funny how even in the last one of the last sonatas in Opus 110 in the second movement, it's like going into a tavern, you know. After the first movement is so transcendent and all just so beautiful and lush, and then the second movement just like, oh, let's just have a beer. And it's like these Andra Schiff says it's these two different folk tunes and nursery rhymes almost that he put together. And you know, that's just like so amazing how there's this idea of the artist as this person who transcends us, as so, you know, artistic and so connected to the spiritual world or something. But really, Beethoven dismantles that and says, no, it's about just people, music for the people, people who love music. And that's what I want people to enjoy about my music.
Well, and Beethoven, you bet, was all full of contrast as a person as well. And yeah, he was into the philosophies and universal structures and science, physics, everything. And at the same time, he was very much into the tavern and a good glass of beer. And you bet he went to all those taverns, and he was a great collector of the actual authentic folk tunes and songs and
Yeah.
music, which was performed by folk kind of music. And back then, there were no copyright issues with using those tunes as themes. Sometimes he rewrote them to keep the style and the color and then basic energy of it. But sometimes he even quoted them quite freely.
Yeah, I think that's also what makes Beethoven's music so relatable as a genre and as a composer himself, because you realize, unlike some other composers, and the first one that comes to mind, apologize for this, is like Mendelssohn, and Mendelssohn's is the genius of composer. Everything he wrote beginning the age of 12 is like the Mozart, but like a little later, and yet it's genius music, but there's you don't feel like it's so grounded within the piece. It's feel like there's a sort of oh
Polished,
y-
sophisticated,
refined, yeah,
refined.
yeah, and it's sort of a little bit removed from the everyday people, and it's not to say it's not beautiful, amazing, incredible music. It's just a bit different from someone like Beethoven, who is a bit rough around the edges, and maybe that's what makes it relatable. I don't know. And currently we have the Chopin competition, and how we revere Chopin, and one of the reasons maybe we revere him is because of this duality that he does write these, piano concerti and sonatas that are these great pieces, but he also wrote waltzes and polonaises and mazurkas and écossaises, and like just this. Maybe that's what makes Chopin's music so relatable too, that there is this beauty within the ordinary that he likes to elucidate to the audience. What do you think? I don't know.
Well, I always wonder about answers to the question which we see on screen right now. What the heck makes this music so timeless? Don't we all want legacy for our creative outputs and want to crack the secret of timelessness of whatever that output is, whether literature or music or composition or performance? Nowadays, we can record the performances and they can stay on internet forever, but they only stay timeless if people keep coming back and again and again and finding something for them current. It's very to me, it's a fascinating topic. How do you relate to generations of people who are remote, who will be remote from you by hundreds of years? Beethoven's music was written now hundreds of years ago, and it just seems like it's speaking to us today. So I think I mean, it's a very simple question. I wish we had a one-line answer to it. Don't you think, Chris?
I think so. What
But
makes
there
this
isn't. But
music
there
part of the
isn't.
answer? The part of the answer, I would say, is actually what Larry Rapchak talks about, which is where you feel like every note is exactly where it should be, and it can't be anything else. Like there's not only the way in which he's concise with his ideas, but also precise. And then that also then allows us to understand the meaning behind what he's trying to do. And the meaning then also gives light to the story. And then the story gives light, obviously, for us to the human condition. So I think it starts from the little cells that he uses so often and so well, which Larry talks about. And because the cells are so well used throughout his music, it's sort of this thing that keeps growing and growing because of the little things that he does well, and using contramotion, compression, augmentation, everything he does to give these cells a way to grow, it becomes like a beast. And I think maybe the music that is not so timeless, I would say, And I think I have to play some music this week for rehearsal that isn't, I find, quite as timeless per se. Um, and I would say that objectively speaking, the music doesn't seem to be taking me anywhere. And it doesn't seem to naturally fall into this place where like, oh, of course, that makes sense. And it just feels like it's pretty and okay. And I don't know what it is to be a composer, but like, I can tell if like everyone tells stories, and there are obviously people who we know who tell stories better than others. There are those who can really tell a joke, and there are those who struggle. But you can learn how to tell a good story. You can learn how to tell a good joke, but ultimately it's a craft. And I think Beethoven, with his inner talent and gift, but his incredible work ethic just fine tunes the cells that we talk about and then enables him to tell these great stories. And I think great stories are timeless, whether you look at certain biblical stories or Aesop's fables or certain nursery rhyme stories. These are timeless because it's sort of very applicable no matter where you're from. Perhaps like that's an answer I would give. Yeah, great stories are timeless. Yeah. What do you think, Dr. Anna? What would be your answer to this question?
I think the timelessness is actually what makes a story great. Because there are some, there's lots of stories and lots of pieces of music which seem fantastic, but then they die away and don't capture the attention of people who live in a different time. So what timeless means, it means it's relatable across the passage of time. And back in Beethoven's time, people didn't drive cars and didn't have the internet and didn't broadcast anything to anywhere. Let alone the food was different, the villages and cities looked different, everything was different, dresses were different, lifestyle was completely different. So there's something beyond that or behind that, below that, above that, however you describe it, which connects us as humans across the times. And some stories just reflect that relation between all humans, regardless of, just like you said, regardless of where they're from and what time they're from. And
because I'm curious, this is a great point, Dr. Anna. I think it's I had two thoughts. One was related more with art. There are these pieces of art we go to museums to see or art galleries to see, and somehow they just still move us. And then within art, there's also movies and cinema. And there are these movies out there. Like recently, I was, reading something about the 2001 Space Odyssey and how some of these scenes that Stanley Kubrick made back in the 60s, it's still so poignant and it still makes us so moved and it still looks so good on the screen. And it's like, how is that? I think a lot of it has to do with geometrical symmetry or asymmetry that allows us eyes to, there's a lot of perhaps science that may go into it, but there's also something to do with the story. And the second thing I thought about was if Beethoven at the age of whatever got to relive his life and lost all the music, but he had to rewrite things from beginning to end, and his story, everything else is the same. It's just that the music has to go from zero back to wherever it is, and you gave him the same amount of years to live. I wonder what else he would have written. Like, I really wonder. Like, he still got deaf. He still had to fight with his, for custody of his nephew, etc. But it's still, I wonder what he could have written. Isn't it brilliant of a scenario that he may have written 9 symphonies, but it would have all sounded a little bit different? Or I don't know. I just feel like there's an essence of creation that he was able to get behind and understand, so that even if he lost all his compositions, like it just got burned in a fire, everything's got lost, Beethoven, I'm sorry, you just have to redo it all over again. If that happened, like, I still think that there's this essence that would prevail. You may not get the same Fifth Symphony, maybe you might get something different. I don't know what. This is another crazy thought. I wonder what the audience may think. I wonder what you think.
I think you're absolutely right. There's a core essence of Beethoven as creator and what he takes in, and then reworks through his craft of all the elements of music into the musical stories. But the essence is there, and like I said, it's a very simple question which only has a very complicated answer, because there's the nature
Yeah.
in there and his relationship with all the philosophies and his life and his own emotional conditions going through life, and then of course there's his incredible craft and all those elements which he mastered, and then there's also the search for this intuitive, perfect, placement of each element within the context of each composition, and so on and on and on. But where is that magic switch which made him be so extremely effective in not just picking the story, not just putting the elements in, but in speaking to our heart 200 years later, and us feeling the energy, the drama, the joy, and evoking all those imageries through his music. I'd like maybe next time to address this again and see
Yes.
where is that magic switch. It almost seems like he turns it on and some other power comes in and just feels the music with extraordinarily powerful magic story.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I want to definitely thank our team for making these videos to help us have these discussions. It's just a joy to be able to discuss this with you, but also to look at the work that our team has done. And we want to give big thanks to our collaborators as well, New Media Productions, Virtual Concert Halls, Architects of Music, and of course the incredible Larry Rapchak. I've heard from one of our wonderful producers that there's more to come, not just Beethoven. So I'm looking forward to whatever else is. Of course, we have lots to do with this Beethoven, but there's much more to come, and I want to thank our listeners for being a part of this journey with us.
Thank you so much. We are streaming these programs to all the major platforms and to many, many curated platforms, which are placing these programs for the view of their own audiences. And all of these programs are free for public to access because we want to share the wealth and the beauty of the musical world and people who work for it. And thank you all of our collaborators very much for supporting us for the past 5.5 years. We are in our inaugural season, 5 years in the making. So many people behind these pictures and the names of these companies contributed and continue to contribute. Thank you for being part of our community.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you'd like to check out more of our content, we have a lot of exciting shows coming up. So please check us out on our website as well as our YouTube. Until next time, we're going to be reviewing part 3 of this Beethoven 8 documentary series, and then we'll see you soon. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.